The silence in my new house was the first thing I noticed. After years of apartment living, the quiet of a suburban home in the Lakeside Point community was a welcome change, but it was also empty. I had always wanted a dog, a real companion. After settling in, I decided the time was right. I wasn't looking for a designer puppy. I wanted to give a second chance to a dog that needed one. That's how I found Zeus. He was a magnificent 2-year-old German Shepherd at a local rescue, a goofy, gentle giant with soulful brown eyes and ears the size of satellite dishes. His previous owners had given him up because they were moving. Despite his intimidating size, the shelter staff described him as a 75-pound lapdog. I spent an hour with him and knew he was the one. But before I signed the adoption papers, I did my due diligence. I knew that living under the rule of a homeowners association meant my new best friend would be subject to their scrutiny. I downloaded the Lakeside Point Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions, CC. Rasol 180 pages of the man read the pet section with the focus of a law student studying for the bar exam. The rules were predictable. All dogs must be leashed in common areas. Owners must clean up all waste immediately, and no pet could become a nuisance through excessive barking. I searched specifically for the fine print I was most worried about. I used a search function for breed, weight, size, and list. The result was conclusive. There were absolutely no restrictions on dog breeds or sizes. The only subjective clause was a vague line stating that no dangerous or inherently aggressive animals were permitted on any property. With no history of aggression and a glowing temperament report from the shelter, I knew Zeus and I were on solid ground. I signed the papers and brought him home. Our first few weeks were pure bliss. Zeus was everything I'd hoped for: calm, intelligent, and endlessly affectionate. Our daily walks became the highlight of my day. It was on one of these walks that we first encountered Brenda. Brenda was the self-appointed guardian of neighborhood propriety and the iron-fisted chairperson of the HOA's Safety and Compliance Committee. She was a small woman who seemed to carry a perpetual storm cloud over her head, and she owned a pair of yapping, trembling chihuahuas that she treated like fragile royalty. The first time she saw me walking Zeus, she stopped dead in her tracks on the opposite sidewalk. She physically recoiled, pulling her tiny dogs close as if Zeus were a fire-breathing dragon instead of a happy dog wagging his tail. "That's a very large dog," she called out, her voice tight with suspicion. "He's a sweetheart," I replied with a friendly wave. "His name is Zeus." She didn't return the smile. "You know, this community has very strict rules about pets." "Yes, ma'am," I said cheerfully. "I've read them. Leash on, pick up the poop, we're following all of them." Her eyes narrowed. "There are other rules. About safety. About the types of animals we allow here." That was the first shot across the bow. Over the next few weeks, the campaign began. I'd see her peering through her blinds when I let Zeus out in my own fenced-in backyard. If she was in her front yard when I walked by, she would ostentatiously hurry her dogs inside. Then, the first official notice arrived. It was a crisp email from the HOA management company, clearly dictated by Brenda. It cited the dangerous animal clause and stated that a resident had filed a formal complaint. The complaint alleged that the presence of a large, intimidating shepherd-type dog has created an atmosphere of fear and anxiety. The email strongly urged me to remedy the situation to avoid further action. I was furious, but I kept my cool. I wrote a polite but firm response. I stated that Zeus had never barked at, lunged at, or shown any aggression toward anyone. I pointed out the complete lack of breed restrictions in the CC rupees. To bolster my case, I attached a copy of Zeus's adoption temperament evaluation from the shelter and the certificate we had just earned from completing a canine good citizen prep course at a local training center. I was building a paper trail of compliance and responsibility. Brenda was not impressed by facts. A week later, a second notice arrived. This time, it was a formal letter, and it came with a $250 fine for harboring a potentially dangerous animal in violation of the community covenants. It also informed me that the matter had been placed on the agenda for the next monthly HOA board hearing. The board would hear arguments and vote on whether I would be forced to remove Zeus from the property. This was it. She wasn't just trying to bully me, she was trying to take my dog away. The friendly neighborhood had become a battlefield, and I was going to come prepared. I spent the next 2 weeks assembling my defense. My HOA war binder became my new obsession. It contained every email and letter. It had Zeus's vet records, his training certificate, and a glowing letter I requested from our vet attesting to his gentle nature. I went to my immediate next-door neighbors, a kind couple in their 60s, and asked them if they would be willing to sign a statement. "Of course," the wife said. "Zeus is the calmest dog on the block. We love seeing him." I got 3 such statements from my closest neighbors. My final piece of preparation was legal research. I printed out articles from reputable sources like the American Kennel Club and the American Veterinary Medical Association discussing breed-specific legislation and why it's ineffective and discriminatory. I found several legal advice articles for homeowners that explained that an HOA's power is limited to its written covenants. A board cannot enforce a secret rule or interpret a vague clause like dangerous animal to mean any German Shepherd I don't like. The night of the hearing, the clubhouse meeting room was cold and tense. I sat in the front row. The 5 board members sat at a long table, looking serious. Brenda sat next to them, arranging a stack of photos with a grim sense of satisfaction. She presented her case first. It was entirely emotional. "Members of the board," she began, "we work hard to cultivate a safe, peaceful community. But how can residents feel safe with an animal like that living among us?" She passed around grainy photos she had taken from her window of Zeus simply standing in my yard. "Look at the size of it. It's a wolf. These dogs are bred for aggression. It's only a matter of time before it snaps. It's a tragedy waiting to happen. I am asking the board to enforce our safety rules and have this animal removed before someone gets hurt." When she finished, all eyes turned to me. I walked to the podium, placed my binder on it, and took a deep breath. "Good evening," I said, my voice calm. "My name is Mike Jennings, and that is my dog Zeus you've been discussing. I'm here tonight because I believe the Safety and Compliance Committee is attempting to enforce a rule that does not exist, based on prejudice rather than fact." I systematically and dispassionately took apart her entire argument. "First, let's look at the actual rules," I said, projecting a copy of the pet section of the CC, rupees, onto the screen behind me. "As you can see, there are no breed, weight, or size restrictions. The only relevant clause is about dangerous animals. An animal's breed is not proof of its temperament." "Second, let's look at the actual animal," I continued, clicking to the next slide. It was a picture of Zeus, sitting patiently while my neighbor's 5-year-old granddaughter gently petted his head. This is Zeus. He has never bitten, lunged, or even growled at another person or animal since he came to live with me. His dangerous activities consist of chasing tennis balls and trying to sit on my lap. I then presented my evidence. In this binder, which I have provided a copy of for each of you, you will find a temperament evaluation from the rescue organization, a certificate of completion from a Canine Good Citizen course, and a letter from our veterinarian, Dr. Evans, stating that Zeus is, in her professional opinion, a well-socialized and gentle dog. I slid the signed statements from my neighbors across the podium. You will also find statements from my immediate neighbors, the people who actually live next to Zeus, attesting to his calm and friendly nature. I took a breath before the final blow. Finally, the committee's action is based on a subjective interpretation of a vague rule. Legal experts and even court precedents have found that HOAs cannot arbitrarily discriminate against specific breeds when those restrictions are not explicitly written into the covenants that we all agree to. By fining me and demanding I remove my dog without proof of any wrongdoing, the board would not be enforcing a rule, it would be creating one, and that would be a serious overreach of your authority. The room was silent. I had replaced Brenda's emotional, fear-based narrative with an overwhelming mountain of objective facts, documentation, and evidence. The board members were looking through their copies of my binder. Brenda was staring at me, her face a mixture of shock and pure rage. She had come expecting to fight a dog owner. She was not prepared to fight an organized case. The board president cleared his throat. "Miss Brenda," he said, "do you have any documented evidence of this dog acting aggressively? Any incident reports?" "The incident is his very existence," she sputtered. "He's intimidating." "With all due respect," another board member interjected, "this folder Mr. Jennings provided has more documentation than I've ever seen. According to his vet, his trainer, and his neighbors, the dog is a perfect gentleman." After a few more minutes of tense discussion, they called for the vote. Motion to dismiss the violation notice, and waive all fines for Mr. Jennings regarding his pet. The vote was 5-0 in my favor. The president looked at me. Mr. Jennings, you are clear of all violations. We appreciate your thoroughness. He then looked at Brenda. The board recommends that the safety committee focus on actual, documented infractions of our written rules. It was a public rebuke. I packed up my binder, gave the board a simple thank you, and walked out. The weight that had been on my shoulders for weeks lifted. Life in Lakeside Point is peaceful now. Brenda gives me a wide berth, her power to intimidate severely diminished. Zeus remains oblivious to the bureaucratic battle he won. He continues to chase tennis balls, greet neighbors with a friendly tail wag, and try to convince me he's a lapdog. He is a very, very good boy. And every time I look at him, I'm reminded that you can't let fear and prejudice win. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is simply know the rules and have the courage to stand your ground.